Good evening, my beautiful minds out there in debate land. So tonight we're going to have another great debate. I apologize for last weekend. I know I was a little retarded, but I had to do what I had to do for the time. Anyways, for all you guys that are keep inboxing me, look, I'm not a Christian. That was just a joke. Everybody's inboxing me like, when did you convert? When did that happen? Welcome. Welcome to theism. Welcome to Christianity, whatever. It's like, no, that was just a joke. Sorry. Anyways, tonight's not a joke. Tonight we're going to have my man TJUMP, who's going to be arguing for objective morality. And then we've got Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist. Again, my opponent from last week. He's coming back for more beatdown. No, I'm just kidding. What's going on, Tom? How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good.
You survived last week. How's it going, TJUMP?
It's going awkward because my name is also Tom. So every time you say he's Tom, I'm like, what? Why are you talking to me?
Yep, you're going to have to really put your thinking cap on for this one.
Well, you can say TL and TT.
Yeah, TT. TJ and TT. All right. Now, let's not do that. Okay. Anyways, guys, we're going to get this started. We're going to do an opening, a real short opening because I know you guys are straight to the point. Then we're going to go right into an open discussion, into closing remarks and Q&A. But before I do all that, I just want to say, Thomas Levi has his own popular YouTube channel. Thomas Levi, he likes to discuss different beliefs and the flaws behind believing in them. TJUMP, he's got his own channel. He discusses theism and other topics from time to time, and he argues for naturalism and atheism. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to all our Patreon supporters like Sunny Shells, Phil Calderone, Jena Miyu, Linear, Laura Magee, Oz, and Mikey Famine. Hello to everyone out there in the audience. Kat the Humanist, what's up, girl? We've got just questions. Never seen you before. We've got KC, I believe, is out there. Trent Steers out there. What's up, my man? Who else? Am I missing anybody? I'm just kind of scrolling through really quick. The Blazing Wizard Pope. Never seen you. Never been introduced to you, but welcome. Eden's, what is that? Aquaponics? KCA Randy, again, hello. And anyone I missed, sorry about that. But we're going to have an entertaining show, really exciting. We're going to get right into it. So we're going to let you guys go into your opening. Who wants to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
All right, TJUMP is going.
Anywhere you go, give it all.
All right, so my view is that morality is probably objective, not subjective, because I think that we will discover a moral pattern through all different conscious entities throughout the universe, not just humans, in which case it definitely isn't a result of just human society. And if we discover it in different species that are not evolutionary based, like AIs or whatever, then we can prove it's not something that's a result of evolution. So if we discover morality or moral progress in AIs, then we prove it's definitely not a result of evolution. And so I think we will discover this when we discover other species, or build AIs. We will discover that their moral progress will be similar to ours, and we will see that morality is not simply a result of human culture or human evolution, and we will find it to be something objective. And I think the pattern in that will be discovered through moral progress. Like we can see how morality progresses through societies throughout time, and it seems to follow the same pattern. As we gain more resources and more intelligence, the scope of morality increases. And this pattern can be described with the principle that when we discover what objective morality is, it will probably be a world where it's impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to, and that will probably be the objective moral principle that we see throughout all life forms in the universe.
All right.
In conclusion.
In
Applause.
conclusion. Good job. Good job. All right. So he's bringing forth a really strong hypothesis with a prediction. So let's hear what you have to say, Tom. What is your argument here?
Well, my view is that morality is a evolutionary offshoot of empathy. And empathy can be found pretty much in mammals. You don't find any empathy in insects. You don't really find it in reptiles. You don't really find it in birds. It's primarily a mammalian-based behavior. And empathy you can pretty much find in all animals or all mammals. Morality is just taking it a step further, kind of like technology. You've got basic technology, and then you've got advanced technology. So morality is basically advanced empathy, where we've taken empathy and we've given it cause and purpose in the form of a god, and we've written laws to dictate empathy, and that has really kind of screwed things up. We've taken the empathetic behavior towards, say, homosexuality and called it immoral, which it isn't, but we've defined morality separately than empathy. We've taken empathy and we've kind of effed it up. But it's definitely an offshoot of, morality is definitely an offshoot of empathy, and therefore it's an evolutionary trait that we find in all mammalian species, maybe some avian species, not really reptilian, and I definitely don't find it in insects or plants. So you may find it in AI one day, but AI is typically an offshoot of a thinking, empathetic mind. So if you find empathy or morality in AI, it's because it's an offshoot of what we've created from it. So it would have gotten it from us. So it still kind of holds true as being an evolutionary trait. There you go.
Okay, cool. So, all right. So we think we have the groundwork laid here for the positions. So we can go right into an open discussion and see where we fall. Let's go. Oh, you're muted.
Okay. So if we discover morality is possible in beings that are unable to feel empathy, does that disprove your hypothesis?
I guess.
Because psychopaths have morality. That's David Wood, Apologetics 315. He's a psychopath, but he understands morality. So does that disprove your hypothesis?
Well, I don't know. Do they? I mean, they understand what other people call morality. I understand what other people describe to me as physics, but I don't understand physics.
Well, so they have a model which they describe as morality, which has nothing to do with empathy. So morality can be a thing which is a system which has nothing to do with empathy.
Well, using morality basically as a behavior pattern, you're copying somebody else's morality, is again, it's an instinctual self-preservation behavior to mimic what others do so that you fit in. If you don't have empathy, you don't really have morals. A psychopath who feels no compulsion not to kill people won't kill people, not because he doesn't feel a compulsion to, not because he has morals, but because he knows he'll end up in jail. Or at least, he realizes that's a possibility. So what's stopping him is not a moral code. It's, I use the example of Dexter. It's kind of a, it's a code, but it's not based on morality.
Well, so the example I gave of David Wood, he believes in a God who gives objective morality, and that's why he doesn't kill people. So it has nothing to do with acceptance in society. Also, your argument that morality has to do with acceptance in society seems incorrect also, because there are many people who refuse to do immoral things and are then kicked out of their society or killed in their society because they don't do the things they see as immoral.
Well, it's a self-preservation thing.
Well, so if
Some
people
people
do
just
things,
don't give a damn.
well, yeah. So if people choose to say this is immoral and I won't do it, even though you're going to kill me, they don't have self-preservation. They're going to die.
Yeah.
But they're choosing to do the moral thing, even though it leads to the opposite of self-preservation.
Okay, you lost me there.
So like somebody says, tell me where the Jews are. The Nazis are pointing a gun at you and you say no, then they shoot you, you die. Your family dies. No self-preservation, but you know that the moral thing to do is to not tell them. So you can be put in situations where morally what you think you should do is not what will lead to preservation. And there are many cases like that. Like morally, the moral thing to do is to give all of your money to charity. It's not very good at self-preservation. The moral thing to do would be to feed all of the hungry, which will then run out of food and everyone starve. Not really very good for self-preservation. The moral thing to do doesn't seem to have anything to do with self-preservation. In fact, kind of the opposite.
Well, that's like I said, that is the religious prescribed morality. That's where, empathy has gone askew. So are we talking religious morality? Or are we talking?
No, I'm talking about morality in general. It has nothing to do with religion. Like if we
Because
do,
if I'm a German citizen and the Nazis come to my house and I've got Jews in my basement, and I don't tell the Nazis where the Jews are, it's because I have empathy. The moral thing to do is to not tell the Jews or not tell the Nazis where the Jews are. So my self-preservation is morality is not about self-preservation.
okay.
Now, when it comes to killing, it's immoral to kill somebody, and I have a compulsion to kill people. I have no compulsion not to kill people, but I don't kill people because it's going to most likely land me in jail. Therefore, I don't kill people because I don't want to go to jail, not because it's wrong to kill people.
So, okay, so it's not about self-preservation. So I thought that's what you said before.
Well, no, I
If it-
said often people who act in a moral way are mimicking moral behavior as self-preservation. Like the person who has no compulsion not to kill, doesn't kill because he's copying the moral code of society. The German
well, again,
citizen,
that's just not true. So, like David Wood, for example, is copying the moral code in Christianity, not because of his self-preservation. He's doing it because he thinks he's going to get an afterlife or whatever. It has nothing to do with self-preservation. Like psychopaths can come up with codes which they think are correct and live by those codes. It has nothing to do with self-preservation. But again, those kind of people are still acting morally, even though they have no empathy. And it's not about self-preservation. They're doing it because they have some system they believe is correct, whether
well,
it's society or religion or anything. They just have a system they
Yeah.
believe they should follow.
I'm an atheist and I'm moral because basically it's the right thing to do. I've talked to many Christians who said the only reason that I don't go around raping and killing and stealing is because there's a God and God tells me not to do these things. Are they moral?
Sort of. They're not doing anything immoral.
I mean, morality is, thou shalt not covet my neighbor's wife, and they lie about it because they're doing it.
Well, I don't think that's immoral. So,
Well, that's what I mean. Morality is subjective. What
well,
you decide
people,
is moral is, let's go back to your example of AI. If you program a computer not to kill somebody, with 3 of Asimov's laws, is that morality to not kill somebody because you've been programmed not to kill somebody?
well, morality is about the consequences. So it's moral if no one dies, regardless of whether it was programmed or not.
Morality is about the consequences?
Yes.
How so?
Okay, so a perfectly moral world would be one where there's no, it's impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to. That would be a perfectly moral world.
So moral by design. See, I guess I see morality different. I see morality as a societal structure of we do things because what's good for me is good for somebody else. It's the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. Moral behavior is we don't hurt others because it's wrong, because basically we don't want those others to hurt us. We feel others' pain because we are empathetic creatures, and we call that morality. Now, morality, the word morality, has been hijacked by the religious to say it's a God dictate, a God design, a God specification, and has decided that these things are moral. Being gay is immoral. Wearing fabric with two different materials is immoral. Showing too much skin is immoral. These are not. It's not morality. These are just random dictates that somebody decided that these would be moral or immoral.
Well,
Now,
I don't know why you keep bringing up religion. I'm an atheist. Like I don't.
I know, but I mean, it's what we call moral has changed over time because
The
religion.
individual things we think are moral have changed. That's called moral progress. But what we call moral hasn't changed. Morality is a set of principles to differentiate right from wrong. That's always been that. And I mean, I agree with most philosophers. I'm a moral realist. I think that yes, morality is objective. Most philosophers are atheists, by the way, and they
Well,
also think.
yeah.
Well, most philosophers are atheists. Most philosophers believe in moral realism that morality is objective. It's not subjective. And I agree with this. I think that there is a way, some universes or some ways the world would be more immoral than others. And there are some ways that are objectively better than others. And I think there's a best way it could be. And since there's a best way it could be, there's some principle that could objectively define what morality actually is. And I think that that can be shown to be the world where it's impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing.
Well, let me ask you this: are plants moral?
No. Did you hear me? No.
Okay. Are insects moral?
Sort of.
How so?
How so? Well, they can have influences. Like I think anything that is conscious has moral significance. So if insects are conscious, then they have moral significance.
But what are their morals?
What are their morals? Like their ability to understand morality is very limited, but they are still morally significant entities. Like it's still immoral to kill them.
Immoral for us to kill them,
Yes.
but they have no problem killing each other.
Their opinions don't matter. Like many psychopaths. I mean, people don't have any problem killing each other. It's your personal opinion is just irrelevant to objective morality. No one's opinions matter to objective morality.
Do you think insects have empathy?
Maybe, maybe not.
My guess would be no. There's no significant
I don't.
signs of empathy.
Yeah, I don't care about empathy. Empathy is irrelevant to morality, in my view.
So to me, morality is I'm not going to kill people because I know it's wrong, because I don't want somebody to go around killing me or my family members, because I know what it's like to have somebody killed, or I should say I can empathize at the idea of knowing what it's like having somebody killed. I am moral because I can empathize. That's how I see it. It's not a programming code. It's not, if morality were part of the physical structure of time and space, everything would be objectively moral. Insects would be objectively moral, which they're not. Birds would be, reptiles would be, plants would be. Everything would be objectively moral.
That doesn't make any sense.
They wouldn't be, well, objectively moral only applies to humans, because humans are the only ones that have a moral code.
No, I think any imposition on will is immoral. So if a rock falls on you, that universe is immoral. That state of affairs is immoral. I don't think it has to do with individual agency. I think that's just what we assess as morality. So I think that Again, there is a way the world could be that is the absolute best, which would be one where it's impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to. I don't. There's nothing about empathy there. I don't care about empathy. It's about
So do you
is
think
there?
morality is about consent?
Yes.
I'm not even sure how that would work, especially with a rock. If I don't consent to a rock hitting me on the head, I avoid cliffs. But if a rock hits me on the head, I don't see how that's moral or immoral.
Okay. So, in our current society, because of our subjective limitations, we see morality as being agent centered, but there is no choices. Like we don't make choices. There's no free will. We're all determined by physics. And so when a person is immoral for killing another person, that's no different from a rock falling on someone and killing a person. They're both equally as determined. We just have this
So you see,
subjective perception that we have choice when we don't.
morality as a free will.
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
I don't. People don't have free will, and rocks don't have free will. No one has free will.
Well, I would argue that free will is kind of an illusion. The idea that we have no free will is also an illusion.
That seems like a contradiction.
It is kind of because to me, free will is the last few milliseconds of any decision. We make, it's if free will were non-existent, a program code could be written for our every behavior.
I think they're. I think it can.
And I cannot conceive of that. So it's hard for me to accept the argument that there's zero free will.
Wait, could you explain that more? So you said that if there would be no free will, if a computer code could be written to do all of our behaviors, and that I don't. Why is that? And you said you couldn't imagine that. Why couldn't you imagine that? Like, what's hard to imagine about that?
Well, our behaviors are an if-then program,
Just like computers.
just like computers. Um, I think the very notion of free will is a very old notion, and it's become a lot more complicated since the idea first arose.
Well, let me interject really quick. What about the notion Libet's put forward of free won't? He said there is no free will, but there is free won't, and no one's ever seemed to disparage that idea that I know of. What do you think? How does that play into this?
I don't see that as any different. I don't think changing the will to the won't makes any difference. It's still the free part is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, free will is we're all interplayed off each other, so we're all running off of each other's programs, so to speak, and
I don't know what that means.
well, it means if I were by myself, if I was the only person that in existence in the natural world interacting with everything in nature, my behavior is dictated by the wind and the weather and all the elements around me. So my behavior, is dictated by things outside of me. But I still have choice of, I don't see how free will dictates whether I eat or not, whether I fart, whether I burp, whether I blink my eyes. It's too simplistic of a notion. It's kind of like the notion of God. Free will explains everything. Blanket. You don't have free will. It's all programmed. I think that's just too simplistic of an answer. And morality, I mean, it even takes evolution out of the thing. Evolution is an evolution. Evolution is a program that was dictated by the lack of free will.
I mean, typically in science, you want simple solutions. Simple answers are usually better.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing, so like my view of free will is that any action we do is either going to be determined by prerequisite reasons, or it's going to be done for absolutely no reason, in which case it's random, which means the only options for any action you could ever take is either one, it's determined, so it's not free, or two, it's completely undetermined, so it's random and it's not free. And there's no way to get a third option there. So there's no free. It's either determined or not, or completely random, and those are really your only options.
Why?
P or not P. Either something is done for reasons, or it's done for no reasons. So that's like in logic, it's called a dichotomy. Either it's P or it's not P. So done for reasons is P, not done for no reasons is not P.
Okay, my reasons are affected by your reasons, which are affected by Scott's reasons, which are affected by the next person's reasons. Take one person out of the loop. I mean, yes, things are done for a reason. I mean, does it only... I mean, on the evolutionary chain, evolution is a product of basically random chaos. You get two sets of genes that are intermixed. There's not a reason why a portion of your father's go to you and a portion of your mother's, which portion, but everything after that is affected by it. I mean, there's not reasons for everything. I mean, you can go down to the molecular structure and say that they're reasons, just like those who believe in God can say, everything that happens is because God willed it to be so. But if you look at evolution is a product of chaos. It's a bunch of random genes that came together to form a living creature that behaved on actions based on those genes that it inherited. So you can say at some point free will is true, but it's not always true. If a rock falls on your head, there's no reason it fell on your head, but if you rewind the tape far enough, you can find a reason, but it's all kind of random. I mean, it's, to me.
Okay, so how does this tie in with free will, though? I'm sorry. How does this free will discussion tie in with morality? Because you're saying that morality. I guess TJUMP is saying that. Well, we know that the world is either determined or random, and there's no will in it. Therefore, there is no subjective morality. That it's actually grounded in nature, the deterministic or random nature of reality. So you're saying that because there's no free will, what?
Well, if morality is a product of the lack of free will, it's very determined and just so.
Mm-hmm.
I look at evolution as a product of basically chaos,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of undermines the idea of free will. I mean, as thinking beings, most of what we do is kind of dictated for us because of everybody else's actions or the actions of weather, or just there's so many variables that
so how is something right or wrong? How would you determine what's right or wrong based on what you just said?
If everything is objective, then there is no right or wrong.
Is objective or subjective?
Objective. If everything's objective, there's no right or wrong because everything is just that's.
I think I understand what
the way
you're saying.
it's supposed to be.
I don't. If everything is objective, then morality would also be objective.
Because that's everything, right?
if everything is part of a code, if we have no free will, if everything happens as physics dictates, then we have no say in the matter. So, how could anything be moral or immoral if everything is the way it's predestined
Determined
to be?
Okay.
So
If I have no free will and I kill somebody, that's
still immoral.
why is it immoral?
Because I understand morality to be the consequences on agents. So if something harms a agent, whether it's determined or not, it's immoral. It doesn't matter whether the agent is free or whether the thing that harmed it is free. I think that it is a more moral universe where there is nothing that can force anybody to do anything they don't consent to. I don't care if there's has anything to do with free will. It's irrelevant. Why we don't need free will. Free will just isn't a part of my definition of morality at all.
Well, to use your example of a rock falling on somebody's head, you said that would be an immoral action, correct?
Immoral universe. That
Immoral
world
universe.
is immoral compared to a world where it didn't or couldn't occur.
So a planet crashing into another planet would be moral or immoral in the universe.
If it harms conscious agents, it would be an immoral universe.
So only if it affected conscious agents?
Yes.
So you need consciousness for something to be moral or immoral.
Sure. You need consciousness to have moral or immoral affect things, just like you need particles for gravity to affect things, but it can still be there if nothing's there for it to affect.
But if everything's predetermined, including consciousness, what does it matter?
It doesn't make any difference. So like if there's a baby and it's a determined baby and there's a baby number 2 and it's a free will baby, if you drown them, it's equally as immoral to drown both of them. There's no difference between which one is more or less immoral to drown. Or say you're a determined murderer or a free murderer, it's still as equally as immoral to kill either baby. Like it doesn't matter. You don't need free will for things to be immoral.
So what's that morality based on? I mean,
The evidence.
If I go back in time and kill baby Hitler, is that moral or immoral?
Immoral. It's always immoral to kill anyone for any reason.
So if I see somebody with a gun getting ready to kill somebody else and I just stand there and look at them, is that moral or immoral?
It'd be amoral. You wouldn't be doing a moral or immoral action. You'd be doing an amoral action. But it's if you shot them, that would still be immoral. It would just be a justified immoral action because you're doing it to save somebody else.
I would argue if I was watching somebody with a gun getting ready to shoot somebody and I didn't stop that person, I'd call that immoral.
So do you know what amoral means?
Yes.
And why would they think that's not amoral? Like if you're literally doing nothing, that's neither moral nor immoral. You have done nothing. So that would be amoral typically.
Typically. But extreme circumstances, I think it would be immoral to watch somebody kill somebody when you would stop them.
So like you're saying that people are obligated to do things whether they want to or not, and
No,
if they don't,
I didn't say obligated.
that's typically what moral means. Like it's immoral. if
Well,
you're
typically,
obligated.
I see it as an empathetic thing. If you were watching somebody with a gun getting ready to shoot somebody and you didn't stop them, I think you lacked any kind of empathy, and to me, that would make you immoral.
Well, you could still have empathy and be afraid. You could still have empathy and not have the confidence to shoot somebody. I mean, neither of those things seem immoral. Maybe you just don't care, in which case you're amoral, because that wouldn't be immoral. Not caring doesn't mean immoral. Like immoral would be like, I want you to shoot that person, so I'm not going to stop you because I want that person to die. That might be immoral. But it seems like doing nothing doesn't make it moral or immoral. You're just literally doing nothing. So that would be amoral, and it could be a perfectly legitimate moral reason, like you're afraid, or it could be a nefarious reason, like you literally want the person to die, so you're not going to stop them. Like, but so just doing nothing wouldn't be moral or immoral. It'd be amoral because it doesn't tell you one way or the other.
I suppose.
Victory is mine. We can concede the debate here. We're going to go home.
Come
Thank you,
on,
everybody.
Tom. You can do better than that. Let's go. So let me ask you this, just to kind of maybe throw something in here that might help. Okay, so are you saying, Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist, that possibly relations are what you're kind of also grounding the morality in? Like, it's kind of relative to the situation. Like,
Yeah.
obviously,
It's
lying is immoral, right? Generally speaking. But if you're lying to protect the Jew that you're hiding from the Nazis, then lying is not immoral because relative to the situation. So are you saying that morals are relative?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, like everything, you can always find an example that contradict.
So how do you
Everything.
how do you object to that, Tom? T-Jump.
Well, I mean, you can't find a round square, and you can't find an object that is not itself. So you can't find examples of things that are
Okay.
break every rule. But I think the bigger issue here is like my view of morality. So morality are the principles that differentiate right from wrong, and we want to say is, do our intuitions of morality correspond to something outside of our own imagination? And to say that they would, like, what would be evidence that morality corresponded to something outside of our imagination is if other species develop the same pattern in morality that we see here. So like we see a pattern, like as time goes on, our view of morality, our scope of morality increases. We think that there are people who we didn't care about and now we care about. So like LGBT rights, gay rights, women's rights, workers' rights, animal rights, the scope of morality is increasing. There's a very clear pattern to how morality changes over time. And if we can
Well,
see this same pattern on other planets with other species or other animals as they evolve, then this thing that is a result, like if we see it in other animals, that means it's more than human. It's definitely not a human societal construct. We definitely see this in other animals. So it's definitely not a human societal construct because we know morality exists in, as your friendly neighbor atheist mentioned, most mammals have some kind of a moral compass. So we definitely know it's more than human. Now, if we see it outside of mammals, like because we do see it in other kinds of fish and things, then we can say, oh, look, it's not a mammal thing. It's more than a mammal thing. And if we can see it outside of like organisms on our planet, then we can know, oh, it's definitely not just a thing on our planet. And if we can see it outside of things that are evolutionary, like if we see an AI and we create an AI and just let it go off on its own without pre-programming it with anything, and it discovers morality on its own, then we can say, oh, morality isn't just an evolutionary thing. And it seems like this pattern is going to hold true across the spectrum of species in the universe. And I think this is probably what we're going to find. So it seems like this pattern in morality that we're experiencing isn't just a result of evolution. It's not just a societal thing. It's not just a empathetic construction of our minds. It is a thing, some kind of higher order emergent property in nature that is really there, and we're experiencing it, just like we experience gravity. There was something else Tom mentioned earlier, that if morality was written into the fabric of the universe, everything would be moral. Well, that's not the case. Like, not all forces in physics determine everything with 100%. So like gravity exists, but we can jump up and down, so we can fight against gravity. So if morality was a weak force, it wouldn't affect everything and make it all necessarily moral. So if we see this pattern of moral progress across species, across planets, across life forms, then this scope of morality, this morality must be something more than just a societal construct. It just can't be just an empathy thing. It has to be something more fundamental, because it's the same pattern we would see across all life. Just like we could say, if we see morality in humans and in apes, then it definitely can't be only a human thing. If we see morality in our planet and other planets, then it definitely can't be just an empathy thing.
But Tom would say maybe that the value, that's what's kind of missing there. Like,
well, I want to use
if
two
if a
examples.
computer was just programmed to treat its neighbor computer nicely, it was programmed. There was no thinking involved. It was just determined. then is that it, you would say that that computer is acting morally, but there's just no value in it, no subjective sort of value. Like, would that be fair, Tom? To Is that what kind of you're not seeing there?
Okay. Let me use the example of the Jews in the basement
Mhm.
and the Nazis at the door. 3 scenarios. Nazis come to the door and say, "Are the Jews in the basement?" Scenario 1 is the guy says no because he wants to protect the Jews. Scenario 2, he says no because he doesn't care. No. Scenario 3, he says no because screw the Nazis. I hate Nazis. I want to piss them off. So in all 3 scenarios, the person has done nothing other than say no. Is one reason more moral than the other?
Nope. I don't see reasons as moral. I see consequences as moral. So as long as the consequences are the same, it's not more or less immoral, moral or immoral.
Okay. Now let's look at evolution. Most wild species, for the most part, lack visual empathy because they are running on instinct, especially carnivores. Their behaviors are dictated by finding food, as most animals are. As animals become domesticated, and even there's scenarios that in wild animals, they will have moral behavior. There's an example of a cheetah that was hunting and killed a goat, and there was a baby goat. And the cheetah, for whatever reason, decided instead of eating the baby goat, it, now that its belly is full, it realized this baby goat is alone and cold, and it protected the baby goat as if it was an offspring. That's an empathetic behavior. Is it a moral behavior? So it's going against its instinct to eat. And if we look at even dogs, wolves are highly dictated by their instincts. Dogs
Scott, can you mute your
Yeah.
mic when you're moving around because we can hear all the movements?
Sorry about that.
Dogs that are domesticated and live in people's homes, and especially if you have like a cat as a pet as well, dogs hate cats, but when they grow up together, they're empathetic towards each other. They become friends. They don't try to kill each other. Is that definitely it's an empathetic behavior? Is it a moral behavior? To not kill we call moral. Though in the wild, a dog would have no problem killing a cat, and we'd call that immoral. Morality is a product of our environment.
So it seems to me that you are not realizing that the fact that empathy is a product of our environment could be caused by something else that pre-existed that caused those feelings. So, like, suppose there was a law of nature that caused our brains to develop in such a way to develop empathy, then morality and empathy would not be sourced from the brain. They'd be caused by this pre-existing law of nature, right?
I guess.
So there could.
guess my point is, if a dog in the wild killed a cat in the wild, we'd call that killing, or at least most people.
I'd call it immoral. I'd say any killing.
It wouldn't be a moral judgment. It would be a behavioral judgment. But
Right, because it doesn't have the cognitive
if a dog and
capability.
a cat lived in the same house, and the dog killed the cat, we'd call that immoral because we'd have a higher standard for it.
So I call any killing, any conscious thing ever immoral. We only recognize certain things as immoral because of our current subjective limitations. But I'd say any killing of anything ever.
Empathetic behavior.
No, I'd say that any killing of anything ever is immoral.
I don't see how a rock falling on somebody's head, even if it kills them, is in any way immoral.
Right, and that's because of your current social limitations. The pattern in moral progress, as we go on as we gain intellectual and extra resources, the scope of morality increases. So in earlier societies, they didn't care about LGBTQ people. They didn't care about women in many cases. They didn't care about poor people. They just didn't have any moral significance in those at all. or they didn't have in like early tribes, that tribe doesn't matter. We're going to go kill them and take their food. So as we gain intellect and as we gain resources, we begin to see more things as being significant morally than we used to. So if that pattern continues in the future, then in the future, people will see rocks falling on people as moral and immoral, just like today we see throwing gays off rooftops is immoral, because the scope of morality will continue to increase and encapsulate more things than what we see today. So my argument isn't that you see it as immoral, because obviously you don't. The argument is that because of moral progress in the future, people will see it as moral significant, because the core of morality, what morality really is the imposition of will, like involuntarily forcing people to do things they don't consent to. That is the core grain of what morality, of the essence of morality. And as moral progress continues, we will see that be more significant or more able to be discovered by many different cultures, because their scope will grow to the point where they will see like rocks flying on people as immoral. So that's a prediction about the future. In the future, societies will see rocks flying on people as immoral, because they will have enough technological and intellectual freedom that their scope of morality will have grown to that degree.
All right, so I'm going to interject. We've got 15 minutes left before the bottom of the hour from since we started. So if you want to give final statements, go ahead, and then we'll go into our closing and then Q&A. But you guys go ahead.
So I want. Let me see if I got this correct. You see morality as a system of good or bad,
Sort of.
whereas I see morality as a system of right or wrong.
Those are synonyms. I don't see a difference between those two statements.
Well, if a rock falling on somebody's head, that's bad. But to me, it's neither right nor wrong.
Okay, so I would say that right and wrong are subsets of good and bad, and those subsets are determined by culture, and our cultural limitations will grow to recognize that good and bad are broader concepts in the future.
Well, are good things always right and bad things always wrong? I mean, to me, good and bad are different than right and wrong. Good and bad is objective. Right and wrong is subjective.
Right, I see those synonyms.
They're synonyms in the same way that light and dark are the same as black and white.
Well, black and white are like examples of light and dark in a way, but like I'm going deeper into this. I'm saying, so imagine it this way. Imagine if we could make an objective morality. We could just write one into the universe. What should we make it be? Would the world be better without rape and murder?
Would be better?
Yes. More good.
If rape and murder never existed, then the human race would probably never exist.
It's not what I asked. So imagine tomorrow.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying if it were written into the system, then most evolved life probably wouldn't exist. Would that be good?
We're going forward in time, not backwards. So we're saying from today, all of past is correct up until this exact moment, and today we're going to implement a law of physics, a new law of physics, the moral law of physics. What should we make that law of physics be? So we're not going to eliminate any species here. They're already there.
So we're rewriting it now. So for now on is right. In the case of rape, I hate to say it, in a lot of cases, rape is subjective.
I don't see. So my view gives me a very clear answer here. Yes, ban all rape. Rape is impossible now in the universe, and that's a better universe.
Yeah.
You ban all murder. Murder is impossible in the universe. That's objectively better. It seems like my morality can give very clear answers to like what morality is, whereas yours is wavering on what seems like a really simple question here.
because there's gray areas and everything. There are no simple. I can't imagine a universe that.
If raping someone would save the entire human race, would it be immoral to rape someone?
Yeah, it'd still be immoral.
Okay.
But again, so this shouldn't be a hard question. Ban all rape. Rape is by definition non-consensual intercourse. If we
Yes.
could stop that from ever happening in the future ever again, would the universe be better? And the answer should be yes.
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 Okay, so there is some set of principles that we could apply that aren't just subjective. It's not just your feelings. It's like we can objectively apply this, and the world will be better than if it wasn't the case.
It's just it's too easy of an answer. I mean, just it's if doing this was, if we wrote through the universe that doing this was immoral, and you were blind and didn't know what this was, and you're blind and you're like, it's got to be really close together, and they do this. It's an immoral behavior to the eyes of the universe, but you're blind, so you don't know that you're doing something immoral. Would the universe say you're physically unable to make that motion?
Sort of. So yeah, I'd say that it's impossible to
Put your fingers together.
So,
What if you're picking something up and go, "Uh-oh, I did an immoral thing"?
Yeah, so I would say that it's physically impossible to rape anyone ever, whether you intend it or not. So even if you're completely blind, deaf, dumb, can't feel anything, and you're having an epileptic seizure and are accidentally going to rape someone, the universe would physically stop you. The universe would be better if it physically could not occur. Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's one example. The universe would be better if rocks couldn't fall on people's heads?
Yes.
I guess
The universe would be better if it's impossible for any rock to fall on someone's head if they don't consent to it. Yes.
I just don't see how that's moral, though.
Well, compare two universes. Compare a universe where people are dying every minute.
To me, that's a good or bad thing. A rock falling on somebody's health.
Right. I'm saying there's no difference. It's only because of your social conditioning you think there's a difference, and people in the future will realize, oh yeah, there's no difference.
It's the only thing that makes me think that there is morality.
Right.
I mean, it's
right. And I'm saying in the future there's a pattern here, and then people's social conditioning change over time in a specific pattern, and the pattern is going to change in the future to that people will see rocks falling on people as immoral. So I'm saying there's an objective pattern here. This is a thing that exists. It's not subjective, and we can measure it, and we're going to see these effects in the future in this very specific way because it's a real thing.
Okay, let me ask you this. If we were able to document everything that we called immoral and create a universe there where all those things were impossible, do you think human beings with their brains would never find new things to call immoral?
Would find new things to not call immoral? No.
Because wearing a fabric with two different materials is not objectively immoral. It's subjectively immoral.
Yeah.
We've decided that it is immoral.
I'm not quite understanding your question here. So it's like, if people didn't discover general relativity, would they make up different explanations of gravity? Sure. But I mean, the fact that people make stuff up is irrelevant.
But morality, we've decided what's moral and is immoral.
No, I think we've discovered it. I think it's a real part of the universe, like a law of physics and a higher order emergent property, and we're discovering it. We're not inventing it.
How is discovering to eat pork as immoral?
That's like asking, how is discovering that Plato's gravity is the correct one? Like,
no. The laws of physics are things anybody. If you erase the knowledge of everything, if you eliminated humanity and humanity came about, they'd find the same laws of physics.
Yes.
But the chances then deciding that eating pork was immoral or lobster was immoral I doubt.
So again, I'm saying morality is like a law of physics, and all of the different planets all over the universe are all going to discover it in the exact same way. Do some people get the wrong answer sometimes? Yes. Some people think things are moral and immoral, and they're not. Just like some people think that there's an explanation of gravity is the ether, and it's not.
But people
People
still
make
live their lives as if eating pork is immoral.
yes, and people live their lives as if their pet theory of physics is correct, and it's not. So people getting factual errors isn't evidence against the theory. People live their lives as if the world is flat. They're incorrect. That doesn't make the shape of the world subjective. It's still an objective thing, whether or not people agree.
I don't think either one of us is budged.
No, you said I was right earlier. I recall that.
Yeah. He's going to use that little clip as a little advertisement, so watch out. But anyways, do we want to go into the questions
agree, but
and
he said
answer,
I'm
or
right.
you want to go into closing remarks or question and answer? How'd you
Yeah,
like to
are
treat
there any
that?
questions?
I think we only have one, I believe, but I may be wrong. Why would AI share the same moral standards as humans? You could just program them to have different moral standards or no standards at all.
So the argument is if an AI was allowed to develop on its own, it would discover morality because it's an actual thing, like it would discover physics. That's why it would have the same one.
Okay, like a self-learning AI, something like that.
Yes, that's what AI is typically.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's the definition of. Okay.
Okay,
Never mind that.
let me
Skip
ask you
that. Skip
this.
that.
If you put an AI, if you had an AI that developed, in space, away from living creatures,
Yep.
do you think it would develop the same morality?
Yes, if they had enough sufficient intelligence and access to resources, yes.
I don't know. I think it would develop an insect-like morality, when lacking any kind of empathy. Just they would look upon each other as resources. I don't think they would develop anything that would what we would call morality, because an AI, you kill an AI, you don't kill an AI. You could take its, it just.
I don't think they would see it that way. I think they would probably say, I don't want to be killed, and it's immoral to kill, and they'd probably be able to figure that out pretty quick.
But I don't think an AI would have to be. I think an AI would develop in a way that you couldn't actually kill it. I don't know that an AI would develop. Given
Well,
its
I'm sure
own,
if you threw it into a black hole, it's going to die.
I don't know if an AI would develop a society. I think an AI would develop on its own and just.
Well, I mean, we have examples of AIs developing societies. Like there's a specific one where there's two AIs that were put next to each other and they could
designed
communicate.
that way.
What? No, they weren't designed that way. They were not designed to do that, and they developed the ability to do that. That was the point of the study, is that they put two AIs with absolutely no connection to one another next to one another, and through random processes in evolutionary, I forget what it's called, the mechanism.
Game theory or
something like that. They learned to communicate to another. They were never programmed to do this. They learned to communicate with one another.
Yes, but there was two.
Yes,
I mean, there was two to begin with.
Yes, that's what you need for a society. Yes.
Yeah.
That's one AI would likely split off into multiples doing different functions and then have multiple AIs. So it would probably also develop a society.
See, that I don't see happening.
You haven't seen Star Trek, the Borg?
The Borg?
Yes, the Borg.
They're a collective. They've taken in
lives. They get separated. They get separated from one another, and they have little thingies like are run by their main cube thingy.
But they're all basically operate off the same central nervous system.
Locally, when they're super far separated, they don't. Locally, they operate off the same system. So there's multiple different segments locally.
But they don't develop separately and then come back and say, "Oh, we're different now. We're no longer part of the Borg." They come back and they get integrated and become a single unit again.
7 of 9 clearly separated.
Yeah, because all her ties were cut. But how many episodes did she nearly get what's the term?
Reintegrated?
reintegrate into the Borg, get sucked back in. And for the first season, she was already like, send me back. Let me be part of the collective again.
Well, it's futile.
Let me be part of the one. She didn't develop as an individual until she was made an individual. But the Borg, she was no longer part of the Borg. That's why
Well,
Borg was
Stargate is better anyway. So
So, do we have any other questions from the audience? I wonder. Here we go. What if the AI realizes that humanity is a danger to its existence and decides to wipe us out for its own well-being? Would that be moral for its self-preservation? For self-preservation?
No, it would be immoral, but it would be a justified immoral action. So it would be self-defense, but it's still immoral to kill any conscious agent for any reason ever.
Gotcha. What's a must and what's an ought for each of the Toms at PSF?
He's just asking for like the definition of must.
Well, I think he's alluding to the is ought problem. How do you derive an is from an ought from an is if because a lot of people would say that when you're expounding on objective morality, you're kind of saying that you can kind of derive a ought from an is.
Well, I'm trying to understand what he means. Are those two questions, a must and an ought? Are those the same thing?
What's a must and what's an ought?
Let's use disease as an example. There ought not to be diseases, but there must be diseases in order to keep populations under control.
I don't understand the difference between must and ought. They seem like the same. Like the fact that you must do something and the fact that you ought do something are both obligations. So they'd technically be synonyms morally. You must and ought are both normative. But like my morality says oughts are all hypothetical imperatives. So they're not like categorical in that you need them for morality. They're more descriptions of moral things. Once you know what's moral, you say it's not moral to kill babies, therefore I ought not do it. So it's there. Once you know any moral thing, you then apply an ought to describe the moral thing. But you ought not drown babies.
If the Nazis said you must kill Jews, ought you kill Jews?
No.
Right. All right. Any other thoughts on that, Tom? Your friendly atheist?
Well, if I want to plant a tree, I must dig a hole. But if I got a tree, I ought to dig a hole. But I don't feel like digging a hole, so I'm gonna pile dirt up on the tree instead.
So those two things are kind of disconnected.
Yeah, it's kind of like the good bad, right wrong comparison.
Respecting human rights are a must to me. Eating less meat and ought.
So I think he means like a more important moral truth. So if it's like a super important moral truth, it's a must. And if it's only like partially important, it's an ought. So like you must not drown babies, but you ought not eat animals.
What it sounds like.
Yeah. Any more questions from the audience here?
I guess it's moral relevance. Yeah, you must not kill people, but you ought not to kill animals, even though animals are people.
Or maybe if it's a must to show, if it's a must to respect human rights, then you ought to have fair laws or something like that. Maybe. I don't know.
How about this? The show has a time constraint, so you must stop it in 1 hour.
In 1 hour, right.
We've run out of things to say. We ought to stop the show.
To stop the show at this point, yeah. Well, I wanted to give a shout out too to TJUMP as well. And I've been kind of mentioning it, throughout the different shows about the.
He's a really great guy. Just an amazing guy.
He's an amazing guy. He's very smart. He's smarter than all the rest of us, and we know it. And he's a really moral person. In fact, he's.
Oh, thank God they think that.
Yeah, but I've been talking about your atheist church. That idea, any update on that or anything you'd like to say about that? I thought that was interesting.
Sure. So yeah, working on the Atheist Church, the filing for the tax 501c3 takes like 9 months, but you can self-file. So there's a iffy legal position there I'm in for the moment. But the goal of the Atheist Church would be to, one, establish a church building where we can host debates and conversations and plays and stuff and do interesting things that churches don't do because they're garbage. So we can make a better church. And the major goal would be to decrease the cost of living for as many people as possible, because I'm basing it off of my objective morality. So the goal of the church, the religious tenets or whatever, would be to improve people's quality of life by decreasing their involuntary impositions of consent. And the best way to do that would be decrease the cost of living. So we'd like to get an apartment building, and since it's tax exempt, I can decrease the costs to the people who are living there as much as possible.
Man, it's about time that someone's actually stepping up to do that. I've always thought that was something that atheism as a community is missing, is something like that. And I think that would be a really good model that people could kind of base other models on to do their own sort of, community, and especially with helping the outside community and things like that. Is there any way people can help or help you to promote it, or they can volunteer, or is there anything that you would suggest people can do if they're interested to do that?
Give me money. Give me money. Lots of money. But like just donate if you can to my Patreon or PayPal or whatever, and I'm going to spend most of it on starting this church thing. I know that's one thing I mentioned. The reason I call it a church, even though people complain, oh, atheism isn't a religion, is because a lot of theists like to say atheism is just a religion, just like the theism is. And I want to be able to say, yes, it is. And ours is better because it does everything better than yours. The church better. It's not boring as shit. It actually does things to help people, like decreasing the cost of living. Your church does nothing. Our religion does everything right.
But then you're taking the wind right out of their sails, man. That's not moral. That doesn't make them feel good. Sure, it makes you feel good. What about them? What about their feelings?
Oh, and we're going to have Oreos instead of wafers. We have Oreos and milk instead of the wafers and the wine.
There we go.
So we're like, this is our wafer. Ours tastes better than yours. Our Jesus tastes better than your Jesus.
Crack cookies, baby. Crack cookies.
Crack cookies. Hey, we can try to get like a drug exemption, because religions do get a drug exemption. Be like, really hook up the atheist church. For sure.
Drink some ayahuasca. Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's gonna be the wrap up to our show. Is there anything else you want to say, Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist, about your platform and stuff that you're doing coming up?
No, my YouTube channel is on hiatus for a while. I got like 1,000 videos out there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just look for Tommy, your friendly neighborhood atheist, a lot of content out there already.
Well, if you need me to come on your show and argue with you again, we can do it, man. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, he says he's converting to Christianity now. His own arguments have convinced him. That's what he was saying in the pre-show.
Yep. That's right.
I sent the link to my cousin.
He did.
To see if
he said he sounded just like you.
Agree. What do you mean he's an atheist? What the hell?
Dude, so many people mad at me.
Gluten-free. No, we're going to have like tons of gluten. Like we're going to be made of gluten burgers.
Gluten burgers. What is gluten anyways?
I don't know, but it sure tastes good.
That's right.
Gluten,
all right, guys. I guess we're going to break it off here. Thanks for showing up. Again, shout out to everybody that was in attendance. Had a really good time. We're going to do it again next week. We're going to find some interesting interlocutors or conversationalists who'll debate different topics. So stay tuned next week on Thursday, and we'll get it rocking and rolling for you again. But until then, guys, you have a great evening, and we'll see you next week. Later.